Now, you're in the 90s, and you have to reawake the horror genre, and you're thinking, I want to make a movie about, I don't know, a guy that has a knife. And I'm just gonna make it the best horror movie in the world. This horror film is very good and very solid. There's a clear level of talent and love in the storytelling, the mise-en-scène, the scares. But what makes the movie better than the sequels, in my opinion, is the script. And if you think that good writing would be a more obvious choice for horror sequels to pay attention to, I would say you are someone who isn't familiar with the genre very much. From one scene of Sidney watching TV, we learn more about Sidney, important details of her mother, whilst teaching us the plot of a movie, and on top of that, the plot is given to us by another main character. The pacing is so good. Is this a horror movie? Because it has no right being written this well. And it really is the script that makes the characters memorable. Because even though the acting isn't amazing, it really works around to what the actors are good at specifically doing.
Everybody's a suspect!
I don't think David Arquette is an amazing actor, but his performance of Dewey the police officer is great. And the same can be said about Courtney Cox, who's essentially just playing Monica, but with brownish hair. The character people I think remember the most is that of Matthew Lillard as Stu, the second Ghostface. And what's truly great about his performance is how much personality and effort he's putting into being a serial killer. He is giving it 200%. I can show scenes of him without audio and you'll know exactly what his character is thinking. Again, not necessarily a great actor, but I watched a movie of this guy pretending to fucking fart to a CGI dog, and despite me being 20, still made me laugh. The new Scream movies seem to think Ghostface having any personality at all is a bad thing, but I kinda miss when Ghostface were just regular dudes. I like in this movie that they're clumsy and have a sense of humor. It makes them more humane than other horror antagonists. Another reason this movie is more unique than the others is that this movie has so many iconic moments that the sequels love to add to their films, which is great for this film, but it is really annoying in the sequels. Something about the everyone is a suspect line that the future movies do not understand is that they wrote it in a way where everyone being a suspect is just not fun for the viewer anymore. But we'll get to that later. Let's talk about the other good things in this movie that the sequels follow religiously.
Careful. This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare.
Oh look! There's a cool scene where the final girl shoots the main villain in the head before he can do anything. Yeah, that is going to be the main gag with every single future Ghostface. This scene here was served as a moment of suspense that made for a jump scare and a comedic scene, as well as a cool one-liner.
Not in my movie.
And it's a gag that they keep doing again. It just feels artificial to keep doing it every movie. There's no more suspense because you know what they're doing. It feels predictable instead of a genuine surprise. And most importantly, these scenes are no longer a reflection of horror movie villains coming back for one last scare. Instead, it is just now, haha, don't you get it? This happened in the first movie. And it gets really annoying when an artificial, flavorless joke is in the script just to kill off a beloved character. One thing I can be very skeptical of these Scream sequels is how self-aware they are. See, I love how self-aware the first movie is, and if you watch the trailer, it's pretty clear the intention was to create a blueprint.
You like scary movies?
What's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
It is not just to parody horror that came before it, but it's also to write the script in a way where being self-aware makes the story more interesting. This is where other elements of filmmaking and mise-en-scène greatly complement it. Like I said, the script and the editing makes it clear that whilst the horror fanatic character says that to survive a horror movie you're not allowed to have sex, we can clearly see that by Sidney having sex during the scenes that Randy is saying this, shows that she is in trouble, which is made very clear later in the film when things do go bad because of this. It is by no means using this, however, to overly rely on. It wasn't over-reliant on making jokes on how self-aware it was, because that would overdo it and bloat the script with shit puns. Hence, why the satire is devoted to a single character. Whilst this film used the satire as a unique selling point, I believe its main goal was to make the film down to earth and take place in a reality that we could live in and hence be more scared of. Being able to connect with the audience things about liking and watching horror movies is such a good step for this film, especially when it came out. Like, this was as meta as the original could get. A simpler way to describe it is that Scream is a slasher movie that talks about other slasher movies. It is not a slasher movie just because there are other slasher movies. It is this level of superiority that makes it down to earth, because we watch films the same way. One of my best friends said they cannot grasp horror movies where things are out of reality and are left to the imagination. I think a horror movie that had an ending like this would probably suit them quite well. And this is what I mean when I say the film has more than one selling point. The horror satire could be something simple as comedy, such as the behind you scene, or how when the TV playing Halloween kills Stu, and it just so happens to be in the exact frame where Laurie stabs Michael in the eye. That's cute, I like that. Or the iconic scene where Billy is revealed to be Ghostface and he quotes Psycho. These scenes were gonna happen anyway. They choose to reference horror movies as the flavor, the icing, if you will. This movie, being a love letter to horror movies and coining the iconic line of asking people what their favorite movie is exactly why this movie is so successful amongst horror fans, because it feels like it was made for horror fans on top of being a good film. Even people that do not watch horror films know that this movie exists. The Scream sequels are not really love letters to horror movies, at least not the new ones. They are love letters to the original, or if you want to be cynical, themselves, just so they could have a chance of having a selling point. And of course, I cannot review this film without talking about the opening scene, and why it works so well. This is another scene in which the sequels just copy and not really remember what made it special. Yeah, it's logical for your horror movie to have a good opening scene to set the tone appropriately, but the difference between this and the opening scene to, say, the original Halloween movie is that that movie starts with Michael doing what he will be doing for the next 12 movies. Or Nightmare on Elm Street, where it's to set up our main antagonist. But Scream does something that other classic horror openings don't do. It sets the tone. If the movie did not have this opening, I honestly think a good amount of praise from people calling this movie great and scary would actually be reconsidered. Because yeah, there's death, but the majority of the movie is just high school kids saying dumb shit about horror movies, Sidney's internal conflict, and jokes about Jamie Lee Curtis's boobs. When people talk about this movie, they talk about this scene and its amazing mise-en-scène, with a smoke to show the pathetic fallacy, Drew Barrymore's acting, the music. And the way it is shot is gut-wrenchingly glorious, and I love it. So yeah, this movie has a good beginning and end, and lots of fun and blood in the middle. 9 out of 10.
Roman Bridger, director. And brother.
You know what the biggest problem with the stab movies is? There's no Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. No bad guy to keep coming back. Those diaries told me who my real father was. It was Billy Loomis.
Maybe the dialogue could be good, right? Like in the first one.
We've got to lure him in.
I'm something different.
That's why I'm gonna shoot you in the head.
Oh no. Yeah, you know what? The sequels suck. I don't care if you fucking hate me. They all suck. They're all bad. Bye.